Hello, Bashar. What can you tell us about dogs that we might not already know? And why do they seem like the happiest animals on earth?
Because they are, in a sense, devoted to pure service, pure love. And therefore, that is the happiest state. And therefore, they represent the idea of service, represent the idea of connections to spirit as the energy of service, as the energy of unconditional love, and are willing to take on, for the people they associate with, many of the symbolic reflections of issues and challenges that the human may be going through, to reflect back to you as a mirror of service what it is you're going through by seeing the behavior in the dog, and understand again it is connected to Sirius, and that's why you intuitively call it the dog star. So the idea of higher perception, higher vibration, higher frequencies of unconditional love and service to all is what the dog represents as an animal on your planet in general, among other things that we will not go into that deeply at this time.
Ha'atu, Bashar.
And to you, good day. Ha'atu.
It's my honor and pleasure to speak with you today.
As it is for us as well. What would you like to discuss?
My first question is, how does one differentiate between communication from the higher mind or spirit guide as opposed to something conjured up in the physical mind?
Well, it's not always important to do so if the information is something that works to your benefit in the direction you prefer. Therefore, trying to figure out where it's coming from or who it's coming from isn't always as important as you might think, because it could get in your way and slow down the process of simply acting on the information if it is representative of the vibration you prefer. So you don't always have to differentiate. If it is important that you should differentiate, synchronicity will probably bring to your attention a way in which to do so.
Thank you.
Yes.
How can one recognize that one is a different person even if they have memories of trauma of past events from non-preferable versions of themselves and experiences?
Well, you can begin to recognize perhaps a difference in the so-called emotional distancing that may occur if you're simply looking at something from another version of yourself, maintaining your ability to see that version, but not necessarily having the strength of feeling that you used to have about it. That's one way. It can be something more observational, like you're looking at a movie of someone else as opposed to something that's truly still as relevant to you as it used to be. That's one way.
Thank you.
The fact also, one moment, we're not done.
Sorry.
The fact also that you may be looking at that event itself from another perspective as a way of recognizing yourself and even asking the question itself, how can I tell the difference, is an indication that you may be using that connection differently than you used to.
I see. Are you also doing first contact work in any other very different time periods on Earth? And if so, may you share?
In a way, my civilization is. I myself am focused in what you would recognize as your present timeline in general, though there are parallel reality aspects to that as well, in different timelines and different versions of Earth that I am also simultaneously in contact with. But my civilization has to some degree interacted with your civilization in what you call ancient times, yes.
What meaning does the year 2023 have from your perspective?
It has different meanings from different perspectives depending upon who we are speaking with, because we're only referring to this idea of your present year from the perspective of the people with whom we connect.
Are you limited by the information that is only experienced through Daryl? As an example, a piece of art that Daryl has never seen may mean that you haven't seen it. So I'm curious if it is the same with certain knowledge and information as well.
To some degree, yes. First of all, we impose certain limitations on ourselves in communicating with your species, if that information would interfere with your process and your growth. So there are things we may not know while we're communicating with you that we will know when we reconnect with our own civilization. But yes, there are certain limitations. If the channel doesn't have certain vocabulary, then we may not be able to express a certain idea in a way that may make sense to humans, in the way they are used to hearing it. We can make an attempt to express it in other terms that are within the channel's vocabulary. So there is that limitation that does exist. There are certain things we can allow our consciousness to impress upon the channel's consciousness that go beyond his immediate knowledge. The word Bashar itself is an example of that. But that's easier done when the channel has absolutely no idea what to expect, no idea of what is coming in that context, because he didn't speak the language that the word Bashar comes from. And therefore, we're able to sort of slip it in because he had no idea what to expect of our connection to him at that time, at that point. So we're able to do it because he didn't know that he couldn't receive it.
Ah, interesting. When was the Sphinx built, and why is it a lion?
It wasn't a lion to begin with. It was Anubis to begin with. The idea of the so-called god of the dead, the underworld. It is about 10,500 of your years ago, far longer than your present archaeologists believe. It was done at the time, slightly before and during the destruction of Atlantis, for the preservation of knowledge and instruction for the reclaiming of that knowledge at your present time in general. And it has to do with the connections to the stars and the connection to spirit guides having to do with the idea of the underworld. Over time, the Sphinx has become eroded and changed and resculpted in a variety of ways. But its original form was as Anubis, which represents the idea of your connection to the spirit realm.
I see. Seeing as how the Earth is a planet with a theme of recycling, I was curious as to how many times the Earth has been repopulated with humans.
Humans, as you understand them today, have not repopulated the Earth. Other kinds of beings have populated the Earth before your time.
Were they very different from human beings, or somewhat?
Some of them were humanoid. A few of them were not at all.
Why are they not here right now?
Because it is your time. They have done what they needed to do, just as you will eventually no longer reincarnate as human on the Earth when it is no longer your time, when you no longer need the lessons that Earth can provide. In about 1,000 of your years, you will stop reincarnating altogether as the human species, because you will already have been evolved into the 6th hybrid race, and you will move on to something else. And other beings will come in to take advantage of the cycles of Earth in their own way, on their own journey.
Wow.
It's like graduating from a school. Why go back? You have graduated. Other students will come in to use the facilities, to learn new things.
I hear that. One last question, if I may. If possible, may I receive a mantra from your ancient language, perhaps maybe to help me connect more clearly with the silver cord?
Ash-ah shakanani. Ash-ah shakanani. Ash-ah shakanani.
Thank you so much. Namaste, aho, and my deepest unconditional love your way for all that you do. And I mean, thank you so much.
Aveo.
Aveo.
Hey, hello, Bashar. So my question is about a couple years ago, I was meditating, And about when I'm about to end my meditation, I heard a voice, and this voice is both female and male. And they said, "We are surround you," in English. By the way, my first language is Chinese, and they spoke to me in English. This is the first time. And the second time is still I was meditating. And about when I'm about to end my meditation, I heard a voice. This time it's definitely a male voice, and he said, "Come with me." And I asked back, "Who are you?" And I get no answer. And meanwhile, at the same time, I can feel this electricity can go from the top of my head and through my spine across my body. So my question is, what happened and who was it? What's their purpose? Thank you, Bashar. I love you.
Our unconditional love to you as well. This is a combination of different things happening by your spirit guides and by your own higher mind and by your connections to many other things that you are connected to energetically and interdimensionally. It's basically for the purpose of allowing you to experience the result and rewards of your meditation in raising your frequency. That vibration you felt was the result of raising your frequency as the physical body interprets it. So the idea is come with me means be yourself, be your higher self, be like me. So you are being assisted by guides and your higher self through your meditations. So continue if you wish. It will help you.
Hello and good day.
Good day, good day.
How are you?
Perfect, and you?
Also perfect. Thank you for that reminder.
All right, what would you like to discuss?
In the past, we've discussed genetics and the technology of such, and I wanted to further clarify and have a conversation.
Repeat the word.
I wanted to have a conversation around genetics
Yes.
and the understanding of how your contact sigil, which is a geometry I've been fascinated with, or even before I met you, in regards to how that and the Triana relate to genetics, as well as the teachings of Jesus Christ relate to genetics as well in the Bible.
All right, I'm going to give you one phrase that covers it all and let you ponder this.
Yes.
As above, so below. The idea of DNA is what you are as a physical being. Ponder those things. As above, so below. Look at the order in which that occurs. And the idea of DNA is what you are as a physical being.
So what comes to mind when you say that is as above, or in the quantum field, or in the all that is, in the Father energy, in the expression of God. Below, that is lens through the individual relationship of our genetics, which creates our physical experience.
To some degree, yes.
So when you...
Which starts as DNA.
Yes.
And is you as a physical being. This body that you all walk around in is the suit that DNA required to have a physical experience. But you, as a physical being, are actually the DNA.
Yes. So would it be accurate to say that DNA is the lensing mechanism for all that is, or for the quantum plenum or the ether to express itself physically?
Yes.
And so in your contact sigil, what comes to mind is that trinary structure, similar to the Triana. You have the trinary structure, which could relate to the codons in the DNA. So you have 64 codons. And then you have that Fibonacci spiral that can be clockwise or counterclockwise. You have a binary code of that trinary structure.
Yes, although it's not just a binary code, because you have to think multidimensionally.
Yes.
Not just in a plane.
Yeah, of course. It's, yeah, every...
All right.
Okay. And then, so in the teachings of Jesus Christ, when he says, you know, even the least among you can do as I do, I and my Father are one. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word is God. It seems as though that is saying what I hear you saying in regards to that God, all that is, goes through the word, which is our DNA or our translation interface to.
Well, it's a vibration. It's a vibrational frequency. It's resonance. The word is resonance, frequency, vibration. That then transmutes into the idea of the DNA and projects into a physical reality experience. Remember, the symbolic interpretation that is imposed upon many ideas of your religion is that it is a trinity.
Yes.
Whether or not the symbols that are used are necessarily literal isn't the point. The point is that it is recognized as a trinity. As above, so below, but there's an in-between, always.
Yes, and that in-between would have a positive, negative, neutral lensing.
In terms of the sigil, you have the three that represent the idea of the Trinity, but then you have the spiral that is the active principle in the center that brings into being what is above into below.
Got it. So it's a transceiver. So that's the
Yes.
geometry of how it receives and how it expresses
Yes.
optimally.
Yes.
In the past, we've discussed a genetic or resonance technology for health that's related to that Fibonacci spiral, more specifically to the 0.6180 frequency that corresponds to the same DNA width to length. And obviously that golden ratio is everywhere.
Yes. 1 to 1.618, yes.
So that 1 to 1.618
represents how the structure of physical reality expands fractally.
yeah, fractal propagation is all on that.
Yes.
Which seems as though that's also how your internal lattice structure physiologically, what's known as the interstitial fluid matrix, those ratios of linkages are all that same ratio.
Yes, and it is also representative of the interstitial structure between dimensions.
Oh, wow. And how does that relate to pi? Because in the past, you've discussed pi being that in-between parallel realities.
Pi is the expansive principle within each dimension, the infinite expanding principle that never ends. So every dimension that exists contains at its core a seed that is pi, representing its expansive potential.
Okay. And then so all in the book of Genesis, when it talks about all of the plants, all of the animals, the human dominion over those aspects being a seed in kind that is God, it's also discussing the relationship of genetics that permeates all.
Yes, and remember that in its ancient meaning, dominion doesn't mean in control of, it means caretaker of.
Yeah. Hopefully we bring that back. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Bashar.
Thank you, thank you. Aveo.
Aveo.